A very good morning to all present. Thank you for joining us today. As we stand at the threshold of a critical era for our planet, we are reminded of the profound wisdom of living harmony within nature, as Sir rightly pointed out in his opening address. The majestic Himsagar is a critical ecological region that stands at the intersection of biodiversity conservation, sustainable development, encompassing the Brahmaputra river basin as well as parts of Bangladesh and Myanmar. A crown jewel of the eastern Himalayas, embodying the splendor and fragility of our natural world. Today, as we convene for the leadership address valuing the Himsagar, we are here to reflect on our responsibility to preserve the delicate balance of this ecosystem. Our esteemed panelists will share their visionary perspective on the intrinsic values of the Himsagar. Mr. Ravi Singh, any opening remarks for the Himsagar region, the people, and the conservation efforts that your organization is doing?
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for inviting me here. My colleagues from WWF are here, many friends, and I am a great admirer and supporter of this kind of get-together that is organized by Balipara. Well, almost every year, right? All of us look forward to it. I think talking about there's a saying in our holy books, I think it's in the Quran. It says, not in an era can we ever explain you the wonders of the Himalayas. And it was true then, it is true now. I just want to say that from the global viewpoint where my organization works, WWF globally, we look at the prioritization of approximately 200 eco-regions, which are the valued regions of the earth. Out of that, the Greater Himalaya or the Eastern Himalaya is the only region which combines diverse biodiversity, great knowledge, the congruence of heritage, culture, religion, wisdom, and everything that we value as conservationists or people who value the future of the earth. This is the only region in the world that has all these things combined. And those aspects you talk about, water, Himsagar, the mother of the earth, all those issues, all of them. I'd just like to start with a small opening remark that may be a little dated and may have said it before. I want you to look at a report, you could download it later. It's called Where Earths Collide. This is a WWF report, Where Earths Collide, where we put together the number of species that were discovered on a scientific document between 1998 and 2008. The total number of new species discovered between Nepal, Bhutan and India were 353, which averaged 35 new species every year for the 10 years of study. 242 plants, 16 amphibians, 16 reptiles, 14 fish, 4 birds, 2 mammals, 61 vertebrates. I know this is a little boring, but when you actually go through what we still have to discover, and what we are discussing here is to ensure the future of a lot of things that we have not discovered so far. And I commend you for this. I hope that was some kind of an answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. To Mr. Chanakya Chaudhary, you talked about the role of community being significant and important in giving us the knowledge which should flow from ground up. What is the role of technology in this? And while doing your work, did you feel that Tata Steel Foundation face any challenges in documentation? And what are the proposed solutions when it comes to working with indigenous communities on ground?
So I think any initiative that the Tata Steel Foundation has taken obviously starts with a bit of resistance because everyone doesn't get a buy-in straight away. But I think because there's been so much of engagement on the ground over a period of decades, the acceptance, trust, etc. builds. But just to mention about the technology piece and how it has worked to give, I would say, outcomes for the community. So we have one project which is called the Development Corridor Project, which is actually connecting Jamshedpur to Kalinganagar. From Jharkhand to Orissa, Kalinganagar is where our new steel plant is. And one of the projects which, according to me, is very, very ambitious, but we are working towards it. It's saying that can we connect this corridor, which is a road which leads from Jamshedpur to Kalinganagar, close to 280 odd kilometers, that every village is mapped, every panchayat in those villages is onboarded, because there are times when panchayats are not there, not operational, etc. And what are the benefits that a panchayat should be giving to the village? Can we work with the individuals, the leaders there, to ensure that the entitlements of given by the government can be pushed out in a way that they become the takers, they become the givers. So what the Tata Steel Foundation team has done is not to say that I will get it for you. That's not our aim. But I will make you aware what is available for you and then kind of give you the skill in your hand to make it happen. So obviously if you go to a village, there are some 50, 100 people, you can't say sab log aa jaiye. So they identify their leaders. We train those leaders. So I'm sure my Tata Steel Foundation colleagues can give you more details in terms of how those individuals are taken for training to the IM ranchis, and we take them to different panchayats in the country which are doing well so that they see for themselves what panchayats can and so on and so forth. Coming back, then we can prepare, and through technology we prepare that list of entitlements given by the government on various schemes for individuals and for villages and panchayats, and then they apply for it. Our teams only enable it for them through technology so that it flows into them, and we only measure how many such schemes are available for, let's say, a particular panchayat and village. How many of these actually people have tried to fill up forms through the systems, and how much money has actually flown to them. This has been a very, very positive example of public-private. Second, how technology has worked. I can tell you one more example. We have an initiative, a very long-term initiative which is run for more than 10 years, more than a decade, called Mansi, which is primarily a health signature program, which is for the girl child, which works that from the time a girl child is born till the time she decides to give birth, we cover that whole life cycle. However, we found that in the deep of villages, if there is a difficult pregnancy, does medical health reach her? First of all, is it identified a high-risk case? We are using technology for that. We are obviously training a lot of Sayya Sathis and stuff, and this is again a public-private partnership with the government through the National Health Mission. We started in a very small manner 10, 11 years back in one of the districts in Saraikela, and it has really done well. It has expanded to Kolan region, but a lot of tech is used to not only identify the high-risk cases, but also sitting in Jamshedpur, our team gets an alarm if someone is not getting addressed. And that's the kind of work which helps. I'm not sure if I've answered the resistance part of it. Surely there are pockets where we face resistance even today. Even in Jharkhand, there is a tribe who we talk to, but they say, please let us be. We don't want to be mainstream. We are happy the way we are. Because one of our team members went and said, we want to engage with you, and this is about 5 years back. We want to engage with you. We'll do this. And they kept asking the next why. Why do you want to do this? So we said, by the end of it, they said, this is for your happiness. This will give you satisfaction. And the response was, we are already very happy and we are already very satisfied. So we left them. So yes, there are resistances at times, but I think we coexist.
Absolutely. Many a times while working on ground, the corporates are seen as the outsider, quote unquote, and that makes it challenging for collaborations to happen and for results to be driven out of these collaborations. Ms. Nigna, I would like to bring you here. Assam's tea plantations are very deeply tied to the legacy of Tata Consumer Products. How do you balance preserving this heritage while driving innovation and sustainability, especially in the context of empowering local communities, as we've been talking about since morning?
Hello. Am I audible? So thank you so much, and thank you firstly for having us here. Tata Consumer Products is a 4-year-old company with the legacy of Tata Tea, Tata Global Beverages. So we come from a space of being new and yet rooted in a lot of legacy. And Assam and all the tea plantations is one space which is very, very dear to us. Coming to your question, for us, how we define sustainability, very similar to the Tata Group ethos. We are a part of the community, we are not outside. For us, sustainability has been defined in 4 pillars. We call it the 4 better pillars because we would want to every day ensure that we are getting in the space of being better. The 4 spaces on 4 better for us is on 4 better sourcing. We are looking at 4 better planet. We are looking at better nutrition, and then for better communities. For sourcing, this is where this entire ecosystem is very critical for us. We understand that we need to be socially, environmentally responsible for everything that we are doing in the plantations. We cannot just go there and do a sourcing for today. We have to sustain it forever. That's why we have tie-ups with Trustee, ethical tea partnerships, we have Rainforest Alliance, we have all these certifications and these agencies that help us be honest. They help us ensure that we are getting ready for the future. At the same time, today as well, we have a very clear understanding of how our sourcing is. There are transparent and credible guidelines, and then if anybody is sourcing the product from us, we also have the confidence that we come with the right packing. That's on the sourcing part. On the for better aspect of moving on to the second one, on moving for the nutrition base, we understand that today in the foods and beverages sector, there are multiple products that are available. They may or may not be nutrition driven. They may be just taste driven, or they may just cater to the wider audience. A lot of our products are hence being pushed in a space of being healthy and nutrition based both. You can't really kind of move away, but we would want to have a balance there, and if whatever is the nutritional value of the product should be very well known to the consumer so that they make informed choices. That becomes the second pillar for us, on which we are working extensively with the communities. On the Better Planet side, we did a study in Assam with Trustee, and we understood that if we do not do the right interventions today, by 2050 the climate change will impact the plantations in a manner that it will not be, it will not be sustainable for us to even source from there. So if we are looking at this community, it's extremely important for us to start doing the right interventions today. That starts from training the farming community, getting the soil tillage in place, the moisture cover, multiple technical things somebody like me doesn't understand, but we get the right experts in to train the right folks so that we are ready for that time coming in. We really can't afford to get into a space where tomorrow we are told, like sir mentioned, that our future communities tell us that, what were we doing? So that becomes a very important pillar for us. The last pillar for us is communities. And now this is where we just don't look at our CSR efforts. And again, that's a very Tata ethos. It's not a very exclusive to Tata Consumer Products. We are not just looking at engaging with the communities in space of CSR. We are engaging with them beyond that as well. But specifically on CSR in Assam, we have started something called a Project Janutri. This has been on since 2019, now at least 4th year running. Please visit our stall outside to get more details as well. But broadly, on Project Janotri, we identified places in and around Jorhat where the clean, safe drinking water was not available. The iron content in it was so high that anybody who was consuming it was then further facing waterborne diseases, there were skin issues, and people were not aware that it is happening because of this. Now that's where, like you mentioned, we brought in technology. We brought in iron removal plants, which were brought into the community. Of course, we had our own Tata Switch filters and multiple things that we brought together for the community. We're very proud to say almost 32,000 people have so far taken benefits of that to have clean, safe drinking water. And now at least we are looking at expanding that footprint to state that we will have more such initiatives continuing in the vicinity to ensure that that's the basic right? I mean, safe drinking water is something that people should have. And almost we have seen reduction, which is done through external parties as well. We've seen reduction in people's healthcare costs. We've seen a better kind of growth in the children there, and that we feel that at least we are doing that bit for the community. So yeah, so these are broadly the 4 pillars that we are making efforts on.
Great. Bringing in Mr. Ravi Singh over here. So what, according to you, have been some of the successful conservation efforts that, corporates have made? And organizations like yours, where do they come in?
In the context of Himsagar, a lot of the work that's being done by different corporates, if I might say, is just about beginning, because the kind of duration, the kind of time that we are talking about, some of the corporates that I mentioned here, Tata Steel 100 years ago, Jamshedpur, that whole idea of a community township. That kind of beginning is being made here. There was, to some extent, an impact of the old public sector corporations that were in this part of the world. And now, moving ahead, I can give one example as this region is likely to, for one or the other, we are going to take out a lot of idle power from this area. And in the classification, idle power, with all its problems and issues, I don't need to repeat that here. People know this very well. The power is considered to be, in that sense, a green resource because it's renewable. And the focus and the impact of some of the corporations that are working on this is to be able to genuinely certify that into green power and to connect it directly to the users who are willing to pay for it. This is a new concept. It started first with some small plants in the western part of our country. Then in Jharkhand, solar power, part of it actually powers our metro in Delhi. And similarly, the one examples that I'm giving you. So this could be one area of work. The other aspect is very different, in fact. Let me come to that. As you know that many parts of India, you could not harvest bamboo because bamboo was considered to be a tree that was not part of the harvestable list of whatever 17 or 19 trees that we had. Bamboo is now classified under a resource that can be harvested. And I know that people are focusing on it, corporations are focusing on this because as a resilient material, the bamboo that grows in our northeast, particularly in certain parts of Assam and Arunachal, is supposed to have the highest resilience as a building material. And treated responsibly and treated as a building material, it can last almost 100 years plus. We haven't discovered this. We haven't really discovered this to the extent that it should be. And I'm not saying this could replace concrete or could replace, reinforcement by steel and others. But as a genuine material that once taken out, give people confidence that this will work. This is an example. I mean, not too far from here, about a few hundred yards, there's an exhibition that was here, which is just being dismantled, by the way. The amount of bamboo they're using, again, sustainably, which would have been taken from part of the region. And this is quite common in Guwahati and other places, not so common in the north. But now we see that people are looking at plantations of bamboo which will be found. So this is an important aspect. The third thing I'd say is that there is a certain direction to look at. I know it's a little difficult to say, but we produce herbs and plants out of this region, which are unique and have very deep genetic values for pharmacy. In fact, a lot of them are used in this part of the country. And now to be able to bring that into some kind of certification, similar to what you have done in Balipara for honey and other. And that certification would enable the communities to protect those areas where these plants are being grown and also get value out of the final price that they get. Similar to what has been tried in different parts of the world, Africa, etc. It's not very successful. But we may be able to make a success. So this is another area. The third I'll say, and this is something very different, and we don't talk enough about this. You know, corporates actually go into an area and they look for talent for future leadership. They establish institutions, they establish technical institutions. We have IITs and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and we have management institutes and all that. Well, cities like Gangtok, Shillong, or Guwahati, they spoke. Gradually, I'm seeing that the importance of these cities and perhaps some of the smaller towns as sources from where we could recruit future leadership in our corporation is actually being valued now much more than it was 20 years ago. And people would go to the, just take an example, go to the IIMs in Ahmedabad, Calcutta, Bangalore, Delhi, wherever. And then we feel deprived of the fact that they have other institutes because most of the good students were taken away by the people who recruited on day 1, day 2, day 3. I was part of that group. Now we are looking at other cities, and those cities are here as well, as they are across India, but they are here. And seeing kind of talent after 5 or 6 years of development of these youngsters, some of them are sitting here, this is what you will be doing. I'm very proud of this region of the country, very proud of it, where they're taking it, the talent, the probity, the sincerity, the honesty, the commitment that they show is second to none. And I'd say that my organization also is a beneficiary of such people. So if that could be a third aspect for you.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, very insightful comments. I would like to bring in Ms. Snigdha, since you come with a very rich experience in HR. Building on to the conversation from what sir commented, how do we retain talent in the region and ensure enough visibility for those potential candidates or students? And sir, I would like to bring in your comments as well, that how can CSR support and ensure that this brain drain, the local brain drain, doesn't happen and the migration doesn't happen to bigger cities just for the sake of opportunities at the cost of, compromising your needs, your ethics, your culture. So Snigdha, over to you, followed by sir.
Yeah, so very pertinent comment by sir. And as an individual, I have gone across cities, as work wherever it takes you. And I've seen that there is immense talent that we have, irrespective of whichever location you go to. And the fact that when you hire somebody from that location, that person brings in the culture, the diversity, the understanding of the regional dynamics so strongly that it is impossible to have somebody from outside to pick that up at the same pace at which any organization needs. As we expand, the more we find new places, the more we would want our talent to be localized. And that's where most of our efforts are going in. You have to have a corporate team, so to say, to design a certain set of things, but everything else has to be as decentralized as possible. And at least as an FMCG organization, because we should be present in every pin code, is how we look at it. We need to have talent at every pin code as well. As we are expanding, our sales teams are pretty much across the board. There is no discrimination in terms of locations. We in fact struggle getting talent in tier 5 towns or whatever you call it, because either we do not have visibility on who are the right people who are interested, or the local talent assumes that migration is the only way, so you don't actually get the right people on board. Currently, we are in the middle of, and I'm sure a lot of companies are, in getting the PM internship scheme implemented. The top 500 CSR spenders are doing it. We posted 1,600 opportunities for Tata Consumer Products. We got about 5,500 applications at a pin code level, and that is extremely impressive. If we are able to get these candidates to join us there as sales team members, and then of course, kind of work with us as we move along, that's all we needed. I mean, that's what my recruitment team does. So why not kind of turn it around and bring it in a partnership manner that it really works for us. So, I mean, we are very excited about the fact that we would like to be as local as possible, and we are just looking at more and more opportunities there.
We are here discussing the conservation efforts of the Himsagar. It also becomes pertinent to talk about preserving the intellect or the local knowledge of the local communities and ensuring that they come up with a solution-oriented approach. On that note, what is the role of CSR in ensuring that students at the ground level or the local communities have enough support in order to showcase their talent and have access to the right opportunities?
So if it's okay with you, I'll answer that second. I wanted to just take on from where Mr. Ravi Singh left in terms of how do we use the nature's bounty to us to build a sustainable business. If I can use that example, he talked about bamboo quite a lot, and I was recollecting or reflecting from my childhood. So I remember when the houses were built, and I am from north, which is Jammu Kashmir. I only saw scaffolding of bamboos. Those were the time when I grew up, early 70s and stuff. And now we have metal scaffoldings, right? Why? Let's think about it. Safety is one issue, it catches fire, it can break, and so on and so forth. However, having said that, it was also cost. Because possibly in one region it's available, in the other it's not. So that also was one of the issues. However, I want to extend this to say that, and he touched the right chord in terms of sustainability, because if I am in steel sector, which is hard to abate sector, it is my responsibility to also ensure that I don't consume nature's produce more than it is really required. Rather, I should start reducing as much as possible. And frankly speaking, that takes me to another way of helping the local ecosystem and helping the business. And Saurabh is here, he can give you more details. Biochar. Now today we are actually talking to individuals who have land holdings to say that you cultivate, we will procure and use it in our blast furnace as a fuel, which will reduce our coal and coke dependence, which will reduce the carbon footprint. And I think these are just examples. Similarly is lac, which can be used, which comes in abundance in Jharkhand, which can be used to make graphene. Right? So I think there is a huge connect of nature's produce to industrial product. It's only a someone or some industrial house which needs to get into the act. So I just thought I'll just mention these examples. But coming back to the sustainability piece, CSR in terms of talent, I totally agree with whatever has been said till now in terms of it is our responsibility to pick up the talent from the local arena. It works well both ways. It works well for the individuals, it works well for the industrial house as well. And I'll give you some examples. Forget the government's framework of saying 80% local employment, 75% and all that. However, I was just, again, I take an example from my own self. When I joined Tata Steel more than 36 years back, frankly, it was a gamble, right? I was from a good college, a premier college. But if you would have asked me that, do I know how to make steel? The answer was no. And I was actually not even in steel, I was in coal mines of Tata Steel. So I'm not a mining engineer, but they took the bet and put me there for maintenance and all that stuff, right? What happened? They trained me. I was open to training, they trained me enough. If I failed, they supported me. And that's what is required. Problem is that in the belt we work, whether it's Jharkhand, Orissa, Northeast, Bengal, all the belts, we have a lot of local population with local knowledge and I would say the mindset that they want to work. If we do not give them opportunity within that framework where they live, they will obviously look outside. That's the challenge. But you have to create systems which gives them the, I would say, positive discrimination in some way. If that doesn't happen, it will not take shape. And I'll give you 2 examples and I'll stop. We take these trade apprentices is a very, very popular scheme of Tata Steel where young boys after 10th and 12th standard, boys and girls, 10th and 12th standard, they apply. Now there is a tribal candidate, there is a general candidate, and so on and so forth. Same example. What are the probabilities that a tribal candidate will get through and a general candidate will get through? It is 100 and 0, according to me. Reason is that you do not have the same foundation for a boy or a girl from the community like a boy or a girl who studied in the city, in Jharkhand, let's say, or in Orissa. So what have we done? We said we will have a separate training program for the tribal candidates, and Saurav and his team, along with the local panchayats and the MLAs, have identified places where their boys can be taught, prepare them for the exam, but then also have a separate exam for them, where only the tribal candidates will compete with each other, and you take the best of them. So then there is nothing like saying that I cannot compete with the general candidate. It has worked well. We've done about 2-3 years of this exercise, where you have a separate exam for a tribal candidate, only the tribals participate and they get through, and then they get the jobs. Similarly, what we also like, I'm just picking up on your example, we are setting up something in Ludhiana, which is an electric arc furnace, which will take scrap, prepare, melt and make steel. Where will the operators come from? So, our CSR team, a girl called Sumona and sits in Delhi, she went and did a house-to-house survey in that region, asking them what are the issues on which they want us to engage with them in the community. Obviously, some of the things we realize will come is English-speaking courses because they want to go out of India. Some of them wanted akhadas for bodybuilding and stuff, which we expected. But some of them came up with this, saying that आपकी फैक्ट्री में आपको क्या चाहिए, उनको वो वाला ट्रेनिंग कराइए. So we have now tied up with the local ITIs in Ludhiana, 2 of them, where we are trying to work out programs on electricals and trades like welding, etc., which will finally give employment in our plant. I may not be able to employ 100%, but in that whole valley called the high-tech valley, cycle valley, there are many other companies which are setting up shops who will need these kind of individuals and skills. So I think the industry can enable skilling and training so that in turn people first get trained and if nothing else employable, and hopefully they will get employed in their own places of where they stay. We run programs in Jamshedpur where we've tied up with some institutes from the south and very, very successful. A lot of auto companies from west and south take them, young boys and girls there. But one of the fathers was telling me that उसको नौकरी तो मिला है, वो जा रहा है, लेकिन जितना पैसा मिलता है उसे उसको किराया देना पड़ता है, बाकी तो हम घर से पैसा भेज रहे हैं. So no one is happy with migration also because it's not sustainable.
Having your eyes and ears open in the region to build a context as a corporate and responsibly ensuring that positive discrimination that as an HR that you can use.
Examples which I think are working well, but there'll be many other examples. I'm just giving ones which we are working with. Last but not the least, the CSR team of Tata Steel Foundation, they implement more or less themselves. So they have a good strength of about 1500 to 1700. I'm giving you a range because every time I ask Saurav Roy, he says the number has changed. So for every project that they go and implement, they recruit local boys and girls because they know the knowledge, they have the knowledge, they know the community, and they can implement much faster. So he has about 1700 boys and girls with him in the foundation who are the implementing arms for the foundation, and it works well from project to project.
Moving on from skilling in the region onto larger issues like policies, what sort of challenges do you see in sending across messages from the region at a national, at a policy level? There is definitely a visibility issue for niche belts like the Himsagar. So what is your take on advocacy and ensuring that the messages from the Himsagar reach the policy makers sitting in the national capital?
I think we should use the lessons and results of the discussions in fora like these to use papers coming from here as knowledge base, and take that forward with our individual capabilities, the reach, the networks that we have to promote these aspects. I think we've discussed, as long as I've been associated with this forum, we've discussed terrific ideas, encompassing the whole of society in the region, and to classify those and make them into something that's actionable, and take them to national fora, different areas, ministries. And I've seen that over a period of time, if it's done with a certain amount of responsibility, that governments do respond, the ministries do respond. Ministry of Education, Earth Sciences, Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, all of them, they respond in some way or the other. Another thing we must say, I'll give you an example, which is that we are used to a lot of highways and infrastructure coming up, with the railways expanding and all that. And many of us are here who've dealt with mortalities of elephants and mortalities of wildlife from some of these areas. And it's been a long, hard road, but working together, we have all managed, it's not just one or the other organization, we've all managed through the Wildlife Institute of India to convince the NHAI to make their new projects as kinder to wildlife, as something that would allow overpasses and underpasses to go, to reduce the speed of certain areas where the trains and the highways run. And you've got enough examples of what may happen coming up in Assam in the future. We have railway sidings that have been increased to allow for movement of wildlife. Now these kind of things have happened not because we were emotional about it, not because we thought that we saw those elephant deaths on the railway tracks and we said this can't happen again. But working with solutions that could be implemented by the engineering services of these corporations, I think that is happening. And there are examples today across all of India. There are guidelines which are now being followed at the time of the DPR, before the DPR is sort of finalized. This is what happened. So retrofitting doesn't happen to that extent. I take another example that between Nepal, Bhutan and India, there are various agreements that are there, which allow for better adaptation and resilience for climate change. Whether it's agriculture, food, forestry, water flows, corridors of wildlife, and others. And these are, although these are underrated, understated, soft areas, but it's the responsibility of all of us to highlight that, to take that forward, because even at a very local government level, people are proud of the work they've done for us. You are aware of the greater Manas landscape between Bhutan and India, and the way it will be managed over in the future, expansion of that perhaps a little bit more to the west towards Bengal. I mean, these are examples that are of a completely different scale, looking at the history of a nation, history of development, history of conservation. I'd say that some of the engineering services that are providing facilities on the ground and can be approached for purposes of making that soft change and making that little change that will make a difference virtually between life and death in some areas. And the responsibility that we have received from our example.
Absolutely.
I just say one other thing, which is maybe we can talk more about this. There is an approach between governments also to adopt the concept of a One Health approach. One Health is good health for the biodiversity, for the forests, for wildlife, for the villages, for the people. And to prevent by this way the progression of zoonotic diseases that we have just come out of pandemic. And the understanding of this, to understanding of science, listening to the doctors, making changes in this, is something that all of us are working on. And you are going to find more and more impact on this. So.
Right. Ms. Digna, I would like to bring you over here and probably some conclusive remarks on how your personal responsibility and professional purpose can help shape the future of policy making, the future of generations to come. We've talked about conservation, we've talked about skilling, we've talked about challenges on ground. Any last comments and thoughts on this?
Sure, thank you. So, see, majorly as a FMCG organization, what we produce is what people consume, and we are very cognizant about that as a responsibility for us. So when we bring to the fore something called a sampan, which is an unpolished dal, what we are bringing is what our forefathers taught us, but it was lost midway. It's healthier, but it's our responsibility to bring it in the best possible way. When we get into a product like Organic India and acquire it, it is to bring back the concept of multiple baselines like ashwagandha, moringa, etc., which were again known to our forefathers but have got lost in transit and are well known outside India more than in India. So we take responsibility of the fact that as a food and beverages company, what we bring to the consumer comes from a space of knowledge research, which like Sir said is all within. When we bring in a product called Tata Copper, it's got copper infused in the water. We've all seen it in our childhoods, how relevant it was, but now we've brought it to you in a bottle form. So, as an organization, everything that we approach comes from a place of being responsible, and any policy and decisions being made are in that light. That becomes extremely critical for us. While we work in the space of CSR, again, we know that we are a part of the problem. We have to be hence part of the solution as well. We create plastic because of our product the way it is. If it has to be packaged in a certain way, we can't help it. Hence, we are the ones who have to bring the solution as well. So as an organization, that's something that we are very, very cognizant of. We are, everything and any policy that we proceed with comes from this space, amply debated, deliberated, and very clearly up for public scrutiny, because ultimately we owe it back to the society at large. So yeah, that's partly.
Mr. Chaudhary, your last words on the conclusive remarks around how do you align, your personal goals and ethos with larger goals, and any message for the future generations?
I think the future generation, which is already here on this earth, the planet Earth, teaches us much more than we teach them. I think they are much more grounded than what we used to be at their age in terms of nature and why are we not living sustainably. So I don't think I should be giving that message to them. Nevertheless, I think the personal goals have to be connected to the professional goals and vice versa. You can't have two different goals, because I think if we are wanting to change the way we live, that means we want to live sustainably, right? We have to make that change individually and collectively. So I can't be talking about or working towards sustainable goals in the office and not having the same thing being followed at home. I have to lead by example if I have to make that change. So if I'm going to say in the office that we should mine less iron ore, use less coal, and then I go home and I waste not putting off the light. I'm just giving you examples which are very, very pedestrian, but nevertheless have an impact on individual lifestyles. Or I go and buy clothes which I will not use for some 5 years. So what am I trying to achieve here? Am I getting into a sustainability mode? And I think we need to ensure that we live sustainably, whether it is in my personal arena or in the professional arena. I think it matches well when you are working towards sustainability. Just to say that we in Tata Steel have started mapping each of our initiatives, whether it is in steel making, whether it is in mining, whether it is any of the initiatives of the Tata Steel Foundation, which initiative impacts which SDG, and what is the SDG goal aspiration that each one of us has. Our aim is to achieve it much before UN has asked us to achieve. And that will happen only if we do the right thing in the office or at home or in our influence groups in families and friends. And I think my only message is charity begins at home. If I start living sustainability at home, sustainability starts with me and ends with me. I think we've done our bit.
Thank you. Mr. Ravi Singh, final remarks.
I think a lot has been said. I'll give you two or three points. In a different world, the indicator of our existence in this region, indicator, if I take it from a species point of view, I could be plant species, could be vertebrates, it could be trees, flowers, whatever. But one that we probably could relate to and are closest to is the life and the existence and the future of the snow leopard, who represents in a way the water third pole or the water tower, and whose existence is followed, is precarious, it's difficult to monitor, is followed by science and monitoring circumstances in Nepal, Bhutan, and India. And we have these beautiful cats, the spirit of the mountains in Sikkim and Arunachal. And in a way, they will be the ones that will indicate how this 1.5 that we are trying to keep this temperature down and to reduce the ppms and all the climate work, that is going to impact this world. There are two species that will be impacted the most. One is the snow leopard, the other is the red panda. The red panda thrives in the sub-montane forests of our Himalaya and exists because of the mist and the moisture and the food that is part of that. Very evolved food pattern. So these are in a way your temperature charts what will happen. And I would request that the best way to help these creatures was to understand, to get knowledge, to see what we can do, and all of us to contribute something by way of action in some place. That's one. Second is that please try and let us, all of us, there's so many wonderful people here, great minds. Can we take one or two actions personally, maybe even individually and separately, that would make a positive difference to communities in this region, whatever it may be, education, livelihood, the CSR impacts. It may be creating resilience in their existence and their systems. Help them. Help them to create their CCAs, the community conservation areas that they are so passionate about. And to see that how all this impact, can we take this to some extent, can we take this together, to highlight it through media, through responsible reporting across the country, because that will create the kind of attention it requires in the center in Delhi and in the financial capital of Mumbai. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So a small step by all of us over here can definitely create a ripple effect in the larger ecosystem around conservation and sustainability. Thank you all for joining us today. Thanks to our esteemed panelists for taking out the time to join us. Thank you.